Welcome to the ConTejas Code Podcast, where we dive deep into code, learn practical skills, celebrate the beauty of engineering, and eliminate imposter syndrome. I'm Tejas Kumar, and I'm an AI developer relations engineer at IBM, previously at Spotify, Vercel, Zeta, and more. Today on the podcast, my guest is the artist known as Diazno. Diazno is a music producer, an artist, a multi-instrumentalist, an award winner, and a creative. As part of being a creative, he also is known for executing on creativity. In this episode, we talk about that. We talk about where does creativity come from and how we can leverage it in our day-to-day work, careers, and lives. We also talk about leadership and what makes truly great leaders. For those of us who work in large organizations or tech companies or anything, we're all part of organizations. We need to get buy-in. We need to get people to agree with us. In other words, we need some level of leadership. Diazno has worked with large personalities, has toured with award-winning musicians, has produced for people who have strong opinions, and universally gets buy-in really well. And so in this episode, we dive deep into how does one get buy-in? What are some great leadership principles to lead by? And how is the artist industry being affected by AI? We talk about all those things. So if you're someone who's wondering about, am I creative? How do I become more creative? This episode is for you. If you're trying to navigate some type of organizational structure, how do I lead? How do I convince people of my ideas? How do I prove myself? Then this episode is for you. If you're an AI engineer and you're wondering about how AI is affecting creative industries like music producing, episode is for you. There's a treasure trove of information here, and I would invite you to recognize Diazno for who he is. Just a really incredible music producer. I call him Black Rick Rubin. I hope he doesn't mind. And there's just so much here. So I hope you really get from it all that it has to offer. This episode contains elements of faith. Diazno is quite active in his church, and it's very intertwined with his life. It's the same church that I attend, and there's elements of that. So if you're somewhat spiritually sensitive, maybe be prepared for it, because it's kind of unavoidable when you talk to people like Diazno. Now, at the end of this episode, you will for sure come away with a renewed or maybe a refreshed understanding of creativity and the creative process and how to prioritize work and outcomes, including how to unstick yourself. You'll also come away with ideas about leadership and how you can maybe grow as a leader, or about how you can help the leaders around you. Finally, you'll understand the beauty of the human element in creating movies, music, art, and how AI can't really replace that. Those are some outcomes you'll get. All of this, of course, is free and separate to my day job. And the way we can even make this sustainable is through partners and sponsors. Let's take a moment to acknowledge our main sponsor, and we'll get into the episode. The ConTejas Code Podcast is partnered with Code Crafters. Code Crafters is a great way to either get into coding or to get better at coding. How it works is you pick a programming language you want to learn, something like Python or JavaScript, and you pick a developer tool that you've heard of, something like Git or Redis or Docker. And what they'll do is they'll hold your hand as you use the programming language to create the tool from scratch. And by doing that, you get good at the programming language, but you also get really good at the tool. It's a 2-for-1. They have a generous free tier, if you wanted to start paying, there's a link to a generous discount in the show notes, or you can just go to tej.as/codecrafters. The ConTejas Code Podcast is always on the lookout for interesting sponsors that we like to support, that would also like to support us. If you'd like to partner with us, go to tej.as for more information. There's links also in the show notes. Now, for my discussion with the great Diazno. Diazno, welcome to the ConTejas Podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you today because you are a creative that me and so many other people look up to. I mean, you've won awards, you've been recognized, you're an Ovation ambassador, and I've as most of us know, I've been a fan of your work for so long.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to frame our discussion today off the bat with this idea that everybody wants creativity, but what we need is not just creativity, but creativity that produces outcomes.
Yeah.
Right? We need finished songs. Yeah. We need shipped ideas.
Yeah.
We need momentum.
Yeah.
And you've lived in this overlap between artistry and execution.
Yeah.
Voice, guitar, production.
Mm-hmm.
What's the playbook?
Oh, I'm learning that also. I think I'm still discovering how to get to execution faster from ideas. So Like for me, it usually just starts with like the conception of like, oh, I want to do this. And yeah, depending on time and everything, sometimes it's taking longer, sometimes it's taking shorter. And I've also just been trying to get to the end of that cycle much quicker than I usually would do.
Yeah.
Because of pressure, like I always thought it would always take me long to finish a song until pressure was introduced. So someone came in and said, I need the song here.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I can actually do a song
Right.
quite a lot faster than I used to do. I was like, why do I then take so many times? And then I realized that I had a bit of buyer's remorse, or I had the sphere of commitment is what we call it as music producers, where you're leaving doors open and options. So you pick this snare, but you also pick that snare because you're like, oh, I'm not sure. You're not getting to it. You're not making a decision quicker.
Right.
And so I started practicing committing. So I would find a guitar, play the guitar, and just bounce it in place. I'm like, we can go back.
Wow.
It just forced me to really like decide what was very important. And then that sped up my process, increased my productivity. But I also realized that my output was sounding better than when I had all these different options. And so I think that's one thing that has helped a lot. And then just the routine of that. Because I think what happens is when you're trying to train a muscle, you just need to keep doing. You can't train on Monday and not train for another 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You have to just keep doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. And the more you do that, you're training yourself to execute. Yeah, and not just to visualize or make up concepts. You're basically training yourself to drop concepts, but also to execute. And I think that's something you can train.
Fantastic. So it's reps and consistency is the key.
It is. And making decisions fast.
You know, I have two things to say about this. One from like research, and the other from lived experience.
Yeah.
The research piece, there was this amazing study where they invited a bunch of participants, many people, into a lab, but it was disguised as an art museum, and two groups. And they told Group A, you can have only one painting. There's a bunch of paintings here.
Yeah.
You can pick one, take it home. It's free.
Yeah.
They told Group B, you can pick a painting, but you can then choose to change it later.
Yeah.
And then you see where I'm going with it.
That's terrible.
And then they told Group C, you can have as many paintings as you want. So 3 groups. I said 2 earlier, it's 3. And what they found was Group A was the happiest overall. The one that made the decision, stuck to it. In the end, they just loved their painting.
Yes.
And the ones who could change their painting anytime, they were the most miserable because they were always like, oh, but what if this? Oh, but what if that?
It's usually like that. And that's usually, I don't know who even gave me that advice. I think I was watching a YouTube video or something, and someone just said, this lack of commitment is killing your productions.
Yeah.
Just commit.
Yeah.
Commit. And so what I do is I save older versions. And sometimes that has saved me. Because after a while, you're like, yeah, I think I've gone too far in the wrong direction. I just go back and listen. And I'm like, oh, I actually like this one. And I just pull it back in and I commit again. But just obviously you make mistakes along the way, but you save a lot of time and you can preserve that spark. Because if you think about it, it's like a spark that happens. It's not there forever. So if you're trying to like wood with a stone, there's a spark. There's a time when it burns, but just for a very, very short period. And you're basically trying to preserve it because once it's gone, it's gone. And then you kind of have to get a new spark. And if you see that with like musical ideas, there's a spark that comes and you're trying to get to the end of that idea quickly while you still have the emotions and everything connected to that idea. And the moment you start to stretch it out too much out of principle, you just find out that you have lots of ideas and you can never execute.
Yeah.
And you can't sell unfinished products.
That's so good. You know, so that's the research I shared. And it's so interesting because this applies obviously to more than just ideas, to more than just art. It applies to life partners. Like we see people who are married, right? And they're just like, oh, but what if I get a better one? You know, like
you just need to decide.
Just commit. So this was the research. And so I thought, you know, let me apply this. I was building a product, a software product.
Yeah.
And I think with anything creative, software, hardware, whatever it is, we have a process, right? Yeah. And you said this helped your process. I had a similar thing where when you're building a digital product, you have to think about logos, you have to think about membership tiers, you have to think about pricing, all of this. You have to make decisions. And every time I had a decision, I said, you know what, I'm not going to overthink this. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it, and I don't care. And every time I did that, sure, it may have been the wrong decision, but like you said, you can just go back and change it.
You just keep making progress.
Exactly.
Slow bits of progress. And the way I see it is eventually I'm going to run out of bad decisions to make. You know?
That's good.
So it's like I train myself and I'm also humble enough to accept that this was a wrong decision. This doesn't serve the goal and just go back.
Yeah.
But you know, you make enough bad decisions where you can see a bad decision coming a mile away. You're just like, I've been down this road. This is a road to bad decisions. And so I think it really does help to just be able to make those decisions quicker and train that muscle of that intuition. Because like we're talking about earlier, just before this, with music isn't math.
Yeah.
And there's a science to it, obviously, but a lot of it is intuition and anything creative. There's a lot of intuition. Like when you're building something that has never been, there's not really a roadmap. There's no template. Yes, maybe there are ideas that you're building off of, but you're going on intuition. And that's a muscle you have to train by making mistakes. And I think we search for perfect so much that we never get anywhere. And you just need to be fine with like progress rather than perfection. Because like progress would lead to perfection. Yeah. But if perfection is your starting goal per se, and that's all that you think of, and you don't see the progress, you might never get to perfection. Yeah. You know.
This is so good. This is actually straight in line with what Isaac said when he was on the podcast. Isaac Akinchete, he was like, if you see a mountain and you're like, oh, how am I ever going to climb this mountain? He's like, you'll never climb the mountain. But if you just put one foot in front of the other, at some point you'll get there. Incredible. I wonder if you can help. Also, wait, I want to capture this beautiful thing you said, which is progress, not perfection.
Yes.
I think that's a great slogan. If I could get a tattoo, I would finish the sentence. Creativity is what?
Ooh, creativity is life. It's the first thing that came to
mind. Is
mind.
Life?
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe because I'm a creative, but I feel very alive when I'm creating. And obviously Christian, believe in God. And the first thing that we see God do is create.
Right.
He first hovers. So that's the start of the idea. And he's looking and he's taking stock of everything that's happening. The Spirit was moving over the waters. And then he says, I want to create. And then the next thing we see is execution.
Wow.
And then the next thing we see is he's taking stock. After he created something, he looks at it and it's like, good. He does something else, good. So he's also evaluating what he's done. And then obviously the end of that cycle is rest, which I need to learn how to do. Yeah. But so that was for me very, very significant, like reading through that of like, okay, we're wrestling with an idea of like something needs to change. Yeah. And then you're like, okay, we're going to do this. And it's very, very clear, I want to do this. And then you move straight into execution.
Beautiful.
You do that, but you need to also evaluate. And that's pretty much all of life. And that's why I see like creativity isn't something, and I think everyone can be creative. Everyone is creative. You can bring creativity into like the most basic of actions, even just cooking. Yeah. Like, yeah, I know you're cooking this and everyone can do it like this, but you could put your own individual spin to it. Even if you're just doing it for your family or for your friends or for yourself, you can choose to, hey, I want to do something different. I want to do it well. Yeah. So creativity doesn't mean for me that you have to be a painter or it's in like decorate, like this room looks beautiful. You don't do that for a living, but you put some thought into it. This is being creative already. And obviously some people make a living from it. And those may be the people you call the creatives. Yeah. But I think if you go through life without creating anything, it's a very, very boring life. So I come alive when I just do something basic. I put together a new outfit. I'm like, that looks good. Yeah. That's creativity. I might not make a living from it, but it's still creative. Yeah. You know, and I think if you look around, you just see creativity. You can see beauty in nature. Yeah. It's everywhere you walk. Like design, it's just like the streets. Someone said, oh, I want to put the streets like this. The architecture, it's literally embedded into everyday life. Like you can't escape creativity. You're living in someone's creativity. And so you might as well create something that people can live in. Yeah. And that's why I say creativity for me is life. It's literally, I wake up in the morning, I'm like, I want to do something that makes the world more beautiful and makes my life more beautiful. And, when I go to bed and I've achieved that, I'm like, this was a good day.
So good.
This is a really good day. So,
It's first of all, thank you for the compliment. This room is beautiful.
it is.
My wife did it. The story of this is great. Like I was in Taiwan at a conference speaking, and then I came back, and this was just
done.
there. Yeah, it was a surprise.
She's a good one.
She's a good one,
She's
and
a really good one.
she is creative, and she's also whoever made her. I'm telling you, is like she's
It's
beautiful.
definitely.
You know what I'm saying? But you were talking about that we cannot escape creative. Man, I love this quote because I think a more traditional school of thought is I'm an engineer, and engineering is logic and it's not creativity. I think this is categorically false.
Yeah.
Because there's like so many different ways to create an application like ChatGPT.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And it's an intentional creative decision to say, okay, you go to chat.com and you have this like text field and nothing else.
Yeah.
So creativity is everywhere. And
I was just going to also say something like, I think this was last year, I was thinking about art and science.
Yeah.
And I just felt like if you could take art, if you take art to its highest point, it becomes a science.
Wow.
And if you take science to its highest point, it becomes art.
Beautiful, man.
So for me, I see them as the yin and yang. They're interconnected. Like science and art, or like I don't really see a distinction between both of them.
Yeah.
It's like the whole idea of reps just takes you into the scientific. Like, can you replicate it? I know you did this, but can you replicate it?
Yeah.
Can you replicate it? And you keep doing and trying to do it. Maybe it turns out slightly different. But, we know this, like, obviously, like, if we start going into, like, numbers and everything, you realize, like, the divisions aren't exactly always the same. And there's always some small divergences, non-negligent, that you can just, you can just throw it away.
Yeah.
But there is always that if we reduce it. But I was just thinking about how just you push art to the highest point and you end up with science. And if you do the same for science, it comes back to art. So they're basically just like, it's like two sides to a coin. You can't have a coin without two sides. You can't have just art without science, and you can't have science without art.
Fantastic.
And thinking of it like that really just helps me see the creativity in everything everyone does. Like, you go to a very well put together website or engineering product, or I pick up my MacBook and I see the update. I'm like, wow, I didn't know I needed this, but whoever did this was thinking. Like, I like how it looks. I like the the updates, and sometimes they're just like cosmetic changes. It doesn't change how it functions, but it just looks better. And so when I open up my MacBook, I'm like, I like how this makes me feel. Now I have a better day. I have this burst of like good hormones, and I can do my work better. And it didn't need to change, but changing it made my work better, and that's how I see it.
That's so good. I think so. Two things I want to zero in on that you said that are so profound. Number one, you talked about for those who believe in God and stuff, the early creative thing that God Himself did was create, then assess, then rest. It's this feedback loop. And we talked earlier about not overthinking, not overanalyze, commit and do it. That's the example set before us. Is you create, and then you say, was this a good decision, was this a bad decision, and then you iterate. And you keep doing that, and then you rest, of course. We even see this, like, I mean, you talk about the Bible with Noah's Ark. Create, rest, and so on. And then in the end, he's like, you know what, I'm just going to flood everything. And we start again. I think that, so this framework of execution is as old as time, you would say. And is just, the key to creativity is just following that, right? You also talked about how everyone's creative, how creativity is life, how it's impossible to avoid it. However, I want you to comment on the question, is creativity diminishing or vanishing because we're becoming more consumer? Like, everyone can consume everything. And I create this podcast with you today, and there's disproportionately more people who consume it, which I'm happy about. Like, I create it so it can be consumed. And I think a lot of people create things so that the things they create you make music so it can be consumed. But I think, and I hope I'm wrong in this, but there may be a culture of unhealthy overconsumption and not enough creativity. If you look at my personal ratio of consume versus create, I try to keep it favorable with the
Mm-hmm.
podcast and with my work. But sometimes I tell you what, man, I take a whole weekend and I just binge watch stuff, right? And so maybe can you
Yeah.
comment on that? And for those who are listening, who are maybe struggling with overconsumption and they're thinking, I'm good for nothing, I'm not creative,
Yeah.
I'm worthless. Things we all think this. What would you say to them to encourage them? Hey, you are creative, and here's how.
To be fair, I'm sort of on the opposite spectrum in terms of thinking. I think we're sometimes inundated with so much creativity that we shut down.
Oh, interesting.
There's so many options. Like,
Yeah.
think about Netflix. When I was growing up, I had just a limited pool of movies I could watch.
And it wasn't on demand; it was at a specific time of day.
I think just having so many options on demand, like in terms of listening to songs. So it's easier to listen to a song than play it yourself on the guitar. When I was growing up, I'll tell you, my brother worked at a radio station in Nigeria. And so what I would do is I would call in, I would practice because I didn't have a phone, I didn't have a laptop, I didn't have the music. Even if I did, you had to buy the CD. I couldn't. And so I would hear a song on radio and be like, oh, this is really nice, and go online. So I had a computer at school. My dad had a laptop.
Go online back.
Go online, get the lyrics. I hear the song and try and memorize as much of it as possible. I'll practice it the whole day on the guitar. And that's how I learned, which is why I tell people very much, I'm a pop guitarist, because that's what I grew up on. And then in the evening, when I thought I was ready enough, I would call the radio station and request a song. Wow. It's like, could you play this song for me? And they're like, why? Is there for a special somebody? I'm like, maybe a special someone was me. And I needed to practice. And I heard the song and I would play along. And that was my 3 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
And then I'll be like, oh, I got this part right. And I got this part right. I got this one wrong. I need to go back. And then, but because I had less, it's just like supply and demand. Because I had less supply, I was creating more in terms of I was sitting down and playing. And from playing, I was like, maybe I could write a song like this.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes just having so much creativity around us to consume has made us consumers. So it's like we have more products of creativity available to us. And that has somehow led us to create less. Yeah. If that makes sense. Yeah. And when I had less songs to listen to, I was writing more songs. And we've seen that boom of songs because back then you couldn't release a song if you weren't connected to a label. And now everyone has this idea of independent distros like DistroKid or TuneCore. Yeah. Like that. When I was growing up, if you weren't signed, you couldn't release music. Yeah. You could maybe put it on could you even put it on the website even before MySpace? There was a time when we didn't have MySpace. Yeah. MySpace, I knew when MySpace came out, and that obviously changed the market model. But it felt like, oh my God, these are the people we're looking up to. I want to be like them. And so you tried to be like them. And now I think creativity has come closer to us, and we're still figuring out how the world works in this new order of creativity. Everyone can build a website now, and everyone can release music, and everyone can do this and do that. And we've just got to a place where it's just it's creativity, and it's no longer special. Sometimes that's how I feel. And I think if people would just go back to creating, even if you're not planning to sell it or monetize it, I think creativity has just become something that we have to monetize. And when I was learning guitar, it wasn't because I wanted to be a musician. I just loved how playing music made me feel. And I loved bringing joy to my classmates because after sometimes I'll take my guitar to school, and during the breaks, can you play us a song? And we'll play and we'll sing together. Wow. And that was the goal. Yeah. I went to an all boys school. There was no girls I was trying to impress or anything. Yeah.
There was no TikTok to become.
There was nothing. I didn't have Facebook. I never posted anything on Facebook. I just played because it made the people around me feel good. So good. And it made me feel good. And that was the goal of it. And I think we need to return to that. Yeah. And maybe it gets better.
So good. I think we need to get to that because I find it very hard, frankly. I used to be the kind of, what got me into programming was I played early games like Prince of Persia and all these. And I was like, okay, this is nice. But how do I make
OG,
them?
OG.
Yeah. And I was like, how do I make them? And so I learned how to program because I wanted to make games. And then I saw some cool websites. I was like, how do I make And so for me, even I have this now with music where I listen to a great song and I'm like, this is a cool song. How do I cover it?
Yes.
right? Kind of like you with the radio.
Yeah.
As you know, I'm learning how to play the keyboard. I really like Cornerstone, great song, and so I'm like sitting every day and practicing because I want to have the skill. But it's more and more easier now for me to go like,
Consume.
it's easier to listen than to play, and I don't know what it takes to change that, but I hope something clicks there. I wanted to ask you. You mentioned reps, you mentioned consistency as sort of we're trying to tease the playbook out, right? For listeners. What's more important for somebody to tap into their innate creative prowess? Is it taste or is it talent?
Ooh.
Because I'll tell you, while you think, Rick Rubin, right? Great producer. I consider you Black Rick Rubin. Can I say that? Anyway, Rick says himself, there's this meme of him on the internet where he's like, I have absolutely no talent about anything. I can't play any instruments, but I have taste, right? Do you feel similar where you don't need to be you're a multi-instrumentalist. I've seen you play, I've seen you sing. You're just a tremendous skilled artist, but you also have taste. So I guess my question is, what's more important? Is it taste or talent? Obviously you need both. Which one do you think the sort of king of this?
I think now thinking about it, it's a really, really good question. I never thought about this like this. I think you need both. You might need one of each for a role. So I'm gonna bring it back to roles.
Yeah.
If you're the guitar player, I think you need taste, but maybe more than taste, you need skill.
Talent.
The talent. If you have the taste, if you know like, oh, I want it to be like jazzy and this, but you can't do it, then I don't need you as a guitar player.
Yeah.
The producer can get away with having more taste than skill in some regards. Like I've worked with jazz musicians and I could tell like every one of them played better than me. I'm like, okay, if this guy's played better than I can.
Wow.
But I was the one who could hear like, we need to do this here. We need to do this here. We need to put the mic this way. And maybe we need to make this shorter. Or this one time it's happened quite a few times. And I'm grateful that I have people who are humble enough to just listen and have that trust. Where I had a drummer play a solo, it was a really good solo. And I'm like, I hate to do this, but can I critique your solo? I can't play drums to save my life.
Whoa.
I'm picking it up. And I told him, I feel like you're going right out of the gate with too much. Like slow down, think melodies and think and do it like this and build up around to here. And then from here, you can bring us back in. I was the MD of the band and I couldn't play drums. Because I was not the drummer, having taste as an MD serves me more than
MD meaning
music director.
Okay.
So having taste serves me more in that role than having the skill to play the drums myself.
Yeah.
If I was the drummer or the guitarist, then I think you need skill. And I think that's why a Rick Rubin can get away with it. As a producer, my roles overlap. Sometimes I'm the guy with taste and I still need to execute. So I'm thinking, oh, we need a guitar part here. And then I still come up with a part. I could also outsource that.
Yeah.
So I think maybe because of the overlap, I didn't see, but I'm basically fulfilling different roles. And I think with each role, you need a bit more of taste or talent. So if you're the old school producer, like Quincy Jones didn't need to play everything. He had like the best musicians around him and he could just say, that is dope. That's not as good.
Wow.
You know, and I hope this is correct because I'm going to say it, but that Michael didn't like the Thriller.
Yeah.
He thought it sounded crappy. And Quincy was like, that's what makes the song. I'm just like, I'm glad you listened to Quincy.
Yeah.
Without that, Thriller is less interesting. He didn't need to play it. You know, he could just find someone and he could say, this is good and this needs to stay.
Yeah.
And that's where taste comes in. But if he didn't have someone with the skill, then you might as well, what's the point of taste without skill? Or what's the point of skill without taste?
Interesting. So then there has to also be like a lot of trust in the producer's taste.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Because like if you mentioned you can't play drums yet, you're getting into it. And you tell this drummer like, hey, I need you to play it like this.
Yeah.
The drummer may be a kind of drummer who says,
yeah,
bro,
yeah, I play better than you. I'm like,
yeah. How can you tell me? You know, and so how does then one with taste convince? And now this question is broader than just music because I work in a 300,000 employee tech company with many people. And at some point, it also comes down to taste. I do conference talks,
Yeah.
and there's people who are like, "Hey, speak this way, speak that way," right? And of course, there's people I trust and look up to. Lots of
Yeah.
people. My manager, Roy, wonderful guy.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying that because we're on camera. But I guess the question is, there's people in organizations, musical or not, who they don't know you from Adam. They're like, give me a reason to trust your taste. And now for Rick, it's easy. He just points to all the things he's produced.
Exactly.
But what if somebody hasn't? How do you get buy-in in an organization there?
To be honest, it just comes down to it. I think this is like a buzzword for now, so I'm gonna say it's aura.
Or
It's like you come with the aura, and then people are like, okay, I can listen to him, but it's really down to it.
Okay.
I think it was John Maxwell who put it that way the first time. It's like leadership is influence. It's literally just influence. Can I get you to do what I would want you to do? Not in a manipulative way, but can I inspire that in you? Can I motivate that in you? Can I just get you to do that? And I remember reading that, I was like, wow, this is profound. It's literally influence.
Yeah.
And influence can come from different things. It could be from the fact that I'm paying you. So if I have staff and I'm paying you, that's some level, gives me some level of influence where I'm like, I need you to show up at 9 p.m. On this day for a rehearsal because I'm paying you.
Yeah.
You could also get influence from just like past accomplishments where I've just like Rick Rubin, I've done all of this. And you could also just get it from, I don't know, from being academic or something. There's different ways to get that influence or aura, as we call it now.
Yeah.
But I think that's really just about it. If I can't convince you that I am worth listening to, we can't get anywhere.
Interesting.
And so that's how I see it. And that's why very often, like I've had to MD bands where I didn't know the musicians and the musicians didn't really know me. And I think there's a level of trust where as a musician you go, and I've also been in places where I came in and I'm like, if he's the MD, he knows what he's doing. I just assume like you didn't just get there, you know, because someone saw you walking on the street. I just automatically assume. And the way I see it is being the MD doesn't necessarily mean you're the most skilled musician. I've been in bands where I was music directing where I just knew I wasn't the most skilled musician, but it's just, for me, it's like cooking. You might be a world-class chef. It doesn't mean you're the best cutter.
Yeah.
There are people who have skills with knives that you could never do. There are people who just understand spices maybe better than you do. Maybe you understand the whole process better than anybody, but it doesn't mean like in every little aspect you're the best of it. And you just, I think you earn that trust. Sometimes you have to earn it, and that's a process. I've had people who were a bit hostile because it's like, who's this guy who's telling me I'm doing it wrong? And I could also be sometimes a bit of an alpha. I must say I have very clear ideas. But it's often because I'm listening to everything together. So sometimes the drummer is only listening to the drums, or the bass player is only listening to his bass, and I'm like, your bass sounds good, but the music sucks.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't want you to sound good. I want us all to sound good.
Nice.
And I also tell sometimes people like, it's not even really about me, it's about the singer.
Yeah.
I am basically
supporting.
just making sure the singer can shine. So everything we're doing, I'm filtering everything that happens. Like, that's a very, very great fill if it was a drum solo.
Yeah.
But this is not a drum solo. And so all of that, and over time, you earn people's trust by throwing in good ideas into the room. Like that drummer I was telling you, after I told him that he did the solo again, and everyone in the room, after he was done, just started screaming.
Wow.
And he could see like, oh my God, this guy just made me a better drummer without being a drummer. And so the next time we're recording and I'm like, do it like this. He's like, okay, cool. It's worked. And so that's how it kind of, it's a bit of a dance. It's a give and take. Sometimes people are not ready for ideas and I try and convince you. Sometimes I just replace you.
Yeah.
It's the fact I've had to replace people because it just didn't work. Like I'm trying to get you and I'm just like, this is not working. So let's go in a different direction. But it's really just influence and yeah.
It's interesting. I asked, the question was, how do you get buy-in, especially from people who don't recognize your authority, so to speak?
Yeah.
And you immediately tied that to, was it Maxwell?
Yes.
Leadership. And
It is.
It clicked for me almost anew that really getting buy-in is nothing more than leadership.
It is.
And we know that from people like Simon Sinek and others
Yeah.
and other guests on the podcast. Actually, we know that leadership, the best leadership is servanthood.
Yeah.
And so maybe the key, and I'd love to get your either yes or no on this, the key to getting buy-in, especially from unfamiliar people, is to show them like, hey, look, you and I, we have the same motivation. I care about success just as much as you.
Yeah.
And you don't know me, but I'm here to serve. In fact, let me serve. And so you kind of model this like, I'll do anything because my motivation is genuinely. But to do that, you also have to have genuine motivation. Some people come in as leaders and they're like, my motivation is to show you how big my body is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so if we have the right motivation and then we communicate that right motivation, then aura just happens.
Yes. And that's kind of what we're talking about. It's like when I give you advice is in the goal of whatever advice is to make you look good also. So I'm not like trying to deceive you so that you look worse than me and so everyone thinks I'm the better player.
Yeah.
It's like I could let you go out without drum solo, or I could help you make it better.
Yeah.
And then when you play that drum solo, suddenly people like think you're a better drummer.
Yeah.
Than what we would have gone out with. And then when he saw the response, he was like, okay, this guy, even though he's keeping the band together, he's also looking out for me because it's your drum solo and I really want you to shine. Yeah. I really love when we play like and the band shines. It's like that's like dream because I know how I've been the guitarist, the guitarist, and I know how you could just be in the background and you've practiced and no one gets to see how good you are.
Yeah.
And in those moments you just realize as a musician, that the guy who's trying to help you or correct you is doing that for your own good. He's not trying to put you down. And that's where constructive criticism comes in, where we trust each other. I have people who critique my songwriting. Is that if you change this word, the meaning is better. I'm like, yes, you're helping me communicate better.
Yeah.
And then in the end, it's still my name on the song.
Yeah.
You know, and so for me, that has helped me receive it. And so I think it's how you communicate it and let people know, hey, we have the same goal here. Like you said, we want to have a good show.
Yeah.
And when we have a good show, you're going to be part of that good show. We're not going to take your name off.
Yeah.
You know, the whatever.
Yeah.
And once people understand that this is all for our good.
Yeah.
We play a good show. Some booker sees us. Because we've had this, for instance, we had this show at the Deutsche Oper. The first show I got to music director. We didn't play with the full opera. We had the string section from them.
Sorry. I need to interrupt. Deutsche Oper, meaning the German opera house.
Yeah.
Whoa,
so a friend of mine hit me up and he was like, I have this performance coming up. I want you to music direct. I'm like, first of all, that you think of me is just like crazy. Yeah. And then had to write the music. It was a bit of an elaborate production. It was a big one I had done to that point because I'd mostly worked with bands. Like I have a background in classical music, but I'd mostly worked with bands. But he wanted us to have a band and we had like a string section from the opera, and then we had singers, like a small choir or a vocal ensemble, and we had dancers. I'd never done anything like that. And because the dancers needed to rehearse, for instance, we had to have the music written down and programmed like months in advance because their dance rehearsals doesn't happen in 2 days. So they had to rehearse for 3 months for that performance, meaning I had to see the end of the show 3 months in advance and put together all of these things. And the reason I'm sharing this is because of the size of the production, we couldn't just find a room. We couldn't afford to bring everybody together. So the dancers rehearsed separately, the band rehearsed separately, the singers rehearsed separately, and the strings rehearsed separately. Wow. We met all together for the first time 1 day before the performance. And that's where everyone has to just trust me. Mm. Everyone has to trust me. If I'm like, we need to do it like this. Yeah. There has to be like, okay, he just wants us to have a good show. Yeah. Because if I have to start explaining why we can't do this because it affects the dancers and, you know, and that's really all of it. And then there's just a buy-in. It's like, okay, this guy just wants us to have a good show. And then we go and we have that amazing show. And then someone else comes and that's the reward. Yeah. The guys from Pop Culture, a festival in Berlin, then we're at the show and they saw it and like, wow, we haven't seen anything like this. This is great. Come do it at a festival next year. So we got booked to do the same show and they're like, make it bigger, make it longer. And so we got booked to do that same show at another festival. And that's the goal of it. People could see like, okay, this is like a seed. We've done this one-time thing where, and many of them had never done anything like that.
Yeah.
That elaborate. And then we did it and people could see that it was good. It was a lot of hard work. It was a lot of filtering and like, we need to change this. We need to make this perfect. You can't speed up because we weren't playing with a metronome. We weren't playing with a click. I'm like, if you speed it up to them, we have to have exactly the same tempo at the rehearsal, at the performance. If not, we mess it up for the dancers because there's movement involved. There's so many parts, and it was this elaborate thing where I was on the guitar, but we had a conductor and we're doing eye contact and I'm trying to like give him the tempo. And it was just really lots of moving parts.
Yeah.
And you just have to trust that someone put it together and there's design.
Yeah.
And that the goal is that we have a beautiful show. When we have a beautiful show, you get paid and you can keep getting paid from this one show and this hard work. So that's how it happens because, for instance, the dancers didn't know me, but they just had to trust that this is what I've written.
Crazy.
And it will be work. And no one heard it until a day before. I was the only one who had that in my head. I was the only one who had everything in my head. No one had heard. People have always heard just parts of it. And that was just, for instance, one of the, like, you need to make it as clear as possible. Also going back to the Bible, I learned a lot from the Bible, I must say. There's the part of the Bible, it's just like make the vision plain so that he can run who reads it. So make it so plain that the person who's running can still read it. That's how I see it. That's a level of clarity where I don't have to stop. I'm like, what was he trying to say here? It's like, it's very, very plain that even if I'm in a hurry, I can take it, or I can carry it with me, even if I'm running, and it's still very, very clear. And so obviously there's an aspect of communication that is very clear. People can understand what you're saying because a lot of conflict just comes from miscommunication or misunderstandings where if it's like, oh, that's what you were trying to say. Why didn't you say that? And you're like, that's what I said. But if you didn't understand it, you've just spoken, you haven't really communicated. So I think it's just a bit of all of these things.
Yeah, beautiful. There's also, if I remember the Bible correctly, this verse, I think in the Proverbs that says, without vision, people perish. So we have two steps. We have one, without vision, people perish. And two, don't just have vision, but have it so clearly that if somebody's running and they're distracted, they still have it inside.
Yes.
You said something so profound just now that now I have to double click on, which is awesome because you're making me like deviate from my plan. But you said you've just spoken, you haven't communicated.
Yes.
Whoa.
Yes.
It's possible to speak without communicating.
Yes.
How does one communicate that vision so clearly that people take it inside?
It's being specific about the words you choose. My dad speaks so slowly sometimes, and it's annoying.
Yeah, you're like, hurry up, man.
Get that,
Yeah.
And he's just always like, I want to make sure that he always said something that annoyed me. He's like, communication isn't what you said, it's what the other people understand.
Oof.
And I hated that because I'm like, you're making me responsible for what they hear. And it's like, yeah, I'm giving you a challenge.
Oh my God.
Don't just say something. Make sure they understand it correctly. So it's also putting yourself. So the way I would speak to you is different than the way I would speak to someone else, which has served me very well in a city like Berlin.
Yeah.
So for instance, we go back to that Deutsche Oper performance. String guys were mostly German, but there was an Asian player there. And the conductor was from England. So we have Germans, an Asian, I'm not sure where exactly, I never asked, but she's Asian. And then there's an English conductor.
Yeah.
In the band, I'm Nigerian. The bass player is Israeli. The drummer was Cameroonian. The lead singer was also Cameroonian. The keys player, I'm not sure where he's from. He's also West African. Trumpet player was German. It's just like this mix of like, I don't know where the dancers were from. This is like everywhere. And so I'm trying to understand, how do I speak to you in a way where you understand and we have the same vision? Because you could say the same thing to 3 different people. We've played the Chinese whispers game. And I think that's a really, really important game to play to help people understand communication.
Wow. Yeah.
You say one thing to that person says it to the next person, and then you wait till it comes back to you.
Yeah.
And you see if it's still the same thing. If it's not the same thing, someone misunderstood the message. And it's very, very important for me to have clarity. Also working just with like a church band, people come from different backgrounds. So I'm music director at my church, and people come from our church, people come from different backgrounds, and you're trying to get them also with song choices. That's how I see. I say by the songs we sing, we're communicating something. Is this the right song to take to an international church where there's people from different places? And that's sometimes I think a song is really good. I love this, but I can't take this out because I'm not sure. And sometimes we can overdo it, obviously, where you're just paralyzed and can't do anything.
Yeah.
But I just take it as a challenge to see, can I make the vision clearer? It's just a goal. It's not the end in itself per se, but it's a micro goal, you might say. I just want to keep, it's like what we were talking about at the beginning, progress.
Yeah.
I just want to get better in communicating. And if there's ever a time when I feel I've been misunderstood, I don't just say, yeah, that's your fault. You have bad listening skills or everything. I'm like, could I have changed something? Even if it was your fault, but could I have bridged that gap? Because in the end, once you're the guy who sits on top of it, I just want results. I don't care what I have to do to get the results, because I know by my ability to get results, I will get more work. And so very often, because I've done this one job, which is like a huge task in communicating, you're communicating to classical musicians who need notes written out. We're communicating to a band who doesn't read notes. We're communicating to dancers who only hear audio.
Yeah.
They don't read anything. Yeah. You're communicating to a singer who's like, this is not how I sounded when I wrote it.
Yeah.
Can you get the vision so plain? Because they obviously have to approve, so sometimes we're like going on tour. I remember this one time we're going on tour with the singer. First time I was music directing like a big show for her. And I did this arrangement. She's like, I don't like it. I'm like, okay. I just spent a few hours on this, spend a whole day putting this together for you. And she's like, I don't like it. I was like, okay, don't get upset. She's still the boss. How can I pass on what I'm hearing to you better? Because I think this is really good and I think we should go like this. And so I'm like, let's have a conversation about this. And I explain, this is where I'm coming from. This is why your version works, but maybe not in this context. This is why I need to do this. And we ended up working on it to a point where it got better. And then I remember we were in practice and she's like, I'm actually starting to love this version.
Wow.
I was like, yeah, we're making progress. It's just like, I had listened to my version, like the old one, so much that the fact that it was different, just like it was a bit of a shock. And I'm like, I like it. This is moving. This is nice for a gig.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, we're getting there. And now she just lets me do what I need to do.
So good.
And so that's how you start to do it. It's just sometimes you need to just let the idea sit for a little bit and be patient. But don't get mad because people don't always buy in. Sometimes they just need time.
Yeah.
Very often you just need to just communicate it in different words. So say the same thing differently. And also do it slower.
Yeah.
I think we live in such a fast-paced world that we're just throwing ideas in quickly and people can't comprehend. We can't soak up information that quickly. And so sometimes you just need to do it slower. Sometimes you just need to understand cultures better. I tell people travel.
Yeah.
Travel, it will save your life. It might save your career.
Yeah.
Because when you travel, you encounter different cultures. You encounter a new way of doing the same thing you've been doing. And you realize, this works in my context. It doesn't work in this context. And if you want to work in an international team and have success, you need to understand cultures.
Yeah.
And I think this is true for musicians, it's true for engineers, it's true for social workers. It's very true for diplomats and people in government. You can't speak the American way if you're talking to an African. And as African, you can't go the African way if you're talking to someone from Asia. And even in Asia, it's not really like, yes, there's an Asian culture, but Japanese culture is different than Chinese culture. And, having that cultural understanding, I think will only serve you better, but just being willing to accept that I'm trying to build a bridge to you and not just like say what I want to say. It's just like really my goal is to make sure you understand it.
So good. I mean, this is one of those quotes that will live forever. Yeah. Like which from your father. Thanks to your father.
I don't know if that was him but he said it so much like I hear it in my sleep.
No, it's so good, man. It's like communication is not what you said, but it's what they heard.
Understand. Yes.
It's so wonderful.
Put it on a t-shirt. I need to check if someone has said that. I need to trademark.
But you should really trademark. I would buy that t-shirt. We'll do a collab ConTejas t-shirt. Anyway, but that is so profound. I also want to add one thing to what you said about communication, which is I learned this from Dave, Pastor Dave of our church, Mosaic, in Berlin, where he the first, I think it was the first January of 2024.
Mhm.
Yeah. Where he was talking about, he's like, let's start the year talking about love.
Yeah.
Love your neighbor as
This is
yourself.
so- yeah.
What does this mean? And he said, love honors people
Yeah.
even in their absence. And then he did this whole thing. I remember this like it was yesterday because it was like kind of like what you said, what your dad said. It's one of those things that is so profound.
Yeah.
He said, look, what does it mean to honor somebody? And he made it clear that to honor people is a verb. It's not just like I have honor for you.
Yes.
It's like, no, I
It's
will.
a doing.
It's a doing. I will actively honor you. And you said, immerse yourself in other cultures and so on, because then you learn how to honor people.
Yes.
You learn that in some Asian cultures, it's actually honoring the host if you like burp at the end of a meal,
Yes.
right? But in Western cultures,
You do that, it's disrespectful.
and so you honor the culture, but you also honor the context. And and this is, I think, how you get buy-in is like whoever it is you're trying to get buy-in from,
Yes.
you actively honor them and then show them and then communicate so that they hear, hey, listen, I'm honoring you,
Yeah.
and I'm honoring the band so
Yes.
that we all sound good together.
Yeah, and I think it's beautiful for them because it's like what we were talking about servanthood. It's like I've come to you.
Exactly. Yeah.
I could stay on my lofty mountain and just be like, you need to obey. And that's not what you're doing. It's like I am building a bridge to you and I'm coming to you. And that has served me very well.
Yeah.
I can tell you because I've had times when it just felt like I thought I had the best idea. I thought I said it correctly, but why don't people get it?
Yeah.
Why don't people get it? And it's not enough to have the right idea. You need to then find out how do you translate it. And every runner reads differently.
Yeah.
And so it's very important that you find a way to just reach them.
Yeah.
And very often that's all it takes. Sometimes people don't really even get what you've said, but they love the effort you've put in.
Yes.
And I take it back to learning German. I speak German way better now, but people kept telling me in 2016, oh my God, your German's perfect. I'm like, oh, I love that. you know? And now I've seen videos of me speaking German. Then I was like, my German wasn't that good.
Yeah.
It wasn't that they were lying. They valued the effort that I put into. It felt like, okay, look at this guy who's never spoken German in his life.
Yeah.
In 4 months, he's trying to communicate with me.
Yeah.
I honor that.
Yeah.
It's like I've built a bridge to you because a lot of them couldn't speak any English. I've met people who wanted to talk to me and have a conversation with me, but they had never had an opportunity to learn English.
Yeah.
They hadn't really had use for it. And the fact that they met this Nigerian guy and they could talk to me about my life and my culture and all of that, and they just be like, you've just learned German for 4 months and you're like, oh, your German is perfect. And I was like, I didn't necessarily think like, I should be teaching German.
Yeah.
But what they were saying is like, you've built a bridge to me. And I think people value that. And because of that, I had a lot of favor for people. People were just inviting me over for Christmas. And it wasn't necessarily like fetishizing this black guy who's learned this German. It's like, wow, I really respect the fact that you've put effort into this. You didn't just come here and demand like, everyone bows to you or anything. And that's not to say that everyone has an easy time picking up a new language. It might just be that I was just gifted. My teacher said, like, you're very good with learning, like you're learning very quickly. But people just saw that I was putting in the effort because I messed up words and diadidas and accusative. It's a hard language to learn. They valued the effort that I was putting into just trying to understand them and trying to communicate with them. And that just also gave me a lot of favor. It gave me influence with them also. And I think that as much as you can do it, it would only serve you.
That's so good. I think we're touching on a really important topic here about communication.
Yeah.
Because again, going back to your dad, the OG, it's not what you say, it's what they hear. I think it's a fallacy, and I think we really need to like double click on this idea that communication is way more than what we say, and it's way more than how we say it, and it's way more than words in general. There was an old study that was debunked, but it still, I think, has merit, where they said communication is if communication is 100%, they said 7% of that is verbal communication, 58% is vocal tone, and the balance somewhere, some big percentage was
body language.
Body language, that's right. But I think that's cool. That's also a debunked paper, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. But what I've seen and what you're talking about is more than words. is the action of actively honoring people.
Yes.
You could, like you said, man, you were speaking trash German
Mm-hmm.
at some point, as was I.
Yeah.
I still speak trash German,
Yeah.
but I resonate with the idea that people, they see me putting in
Try.
the effort, and that
honor
communicates way more than any words I could say.
Exactly. It's kind of what Maya Angelou says. I think the quote is attributed to her, that people will forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
Whoa.
And I think that's one thing I got. I just felt people felt honored.
Yeah.
That it's like, okay, I am. And I mean, this goes to immigration, and everyone has funky thoughts about it. But I like to see myself as a guest in Germany. I'm a guest with privileges, yes. But this is not necessarily like I'm walking into a society that's almost built.
Yeah.
That has been built. And what I do is I just want to just show that I'm grateful. It's just like you walk into my house. Obviously, it doesn't give me the right to like kill you or anything. Like, you don't just walk into my kingdom and I'm like the king and I can order you to wash the plates and everything. But it's still not my house.
Yeah.
And that's how I see it. And it's not necessarily a subservience. It's just really like, I just want to honor, like, what can I do to just assimilate and like get into this culture? Like, the fact that I moved here means there's something good here. Because if this was like, for lack of a better word, a shithole where nothing works, I wouldn't move here. Yeah. So the fact that I moved here shows that there's something good. Yeah. Wouldn't it be nice to learn about that good that I see? And that doesn't mean it's perfect. Yeah. It's by no means a perfect society. I don't know of any perfect society. Yeah. And then it's just this exchange at every point in time. And if the way I see it is just like at every point in time, as if everyone walked around with, how can I honor the person who's beside me? How can I honor the people I come into contact with? How can I go beyond myself and just do something good? Yeah. Just because it's the right thing to do. How can I think about myself less? I think that's something that Dave would always say. Humility isn't thinking less of yourself, it's thinking about yourself less. Yeah. You know, it's not just really about you and what you want. Just put yourself in people's shoes more often than you've done in the past, and you see like your productivity will increase and your influence will increase. And like leading teams, I think a lot of it is just communication and how people feel about how you feel about them. You know? Yeah. So there's how you feel about people, but do they know how you feel? And does it align with? So there are times when people thought like, oh, this guy doesn't like me. I'm like, where would you have got that idea? And it's just like, I don't know, the way you've always interacted with me. Yeah. And I have lost jobs because people just didn't know where I was. Yeah. They were like, you're skilled. I just don't know where to place you. And I have lost jobs. And so I had to learn like, okay. And I'm just like, but that's not what I thought. I actually thought you wanted me silent. And then they're just like, but you're just always sitting there in the corner, not talking to us. And we thought you didn't like us. I'm just like, I just love to listen. Yeah. But my desire to listen felt a bit condescending. Like, oh, he's above all of us. He can't interact with us. Right. And I just wanted to listen and pick up like, oh, and that's, you know, and so it's very important to just understand. Yeah. People understand different things. Yeah. Your goal as a good communicator, because communication is how you use your influence. Yeah. As your goal as a good communicator is just to understand them better, so that you can speak to them better, not just speak at them, speak to them. Yeah, better. And be in community with them, as opposed to just being some high horse guy who shows up to. Exactly. I will say this. I also didn't know how you felt about me and some occasion, because like, so we played together. Yes. And you know, there were times where, I mean, you are this guy, you're him, right? You just like award winning, playing with Luna on tour in Canada and all these places. And so for me, it's super amateur musician. Yeah. I'm like, goodness, man, like high standards, you know, like, and so there's times where like, I'm like, do I suck? Like, and I felt like maybe I should play good and really like play my best. Yeah. And when I make mistakes, I'm like, oh my gosh, I better cover them. And it was with a conversation with you where you used your leadership so well, where you're like, man, like I hear the mistakes anyway, first of all. And you're like, but the most important thing is, do you want them to go away? Because I can partner with you to help them go. And you've done that. And I'm a way better musician because of it. Yeah. But I think that's where it touches on what you said. Like, you don't know how people feel about how you feel about them. Exactly. Right? So then my question following up to that is, how do you find out? Do you just ask them? Do you go like, hey, Tejas, how do you think I think about you? Or is there more to it? Yeah, I think it's a relationship. I don't think you always need to ask. Sometimes you just need to ask, like, hey, are we good? Are we
Yeah.
cool? Like, when I said this to you, how did that make you feel? Sometimes I've said stuff where I was just like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that because I don't know how it landed. It might have been nothing,
Yeah.
but it could be something. And
Yeah.
so I just asked, like, hey, when I said this, I hope you realize, like, I didn't mean it. I just needed to, like, this is what I need from you. And I hope that's what you got. And sometimes they've been like, yeah, that's what I got. And other times they'll be like, it's nice you said that.
Yeah.
Because I actually thought we had a problem. And they were, if I didn't go back to ask them, they would never have told me.
Yeah.
So there is that. But then I think the other thing is a lot of this has to happen informally. Like, it doesn't even have to be business-like. Like, let's have a conversation about,
Performance review.
Exactly. Sometimes it's just relational. It's just being friends and close to people. And that's why I'm trying to make my relationships less transactional.
Yeah.
Because there's a time when I realized like almost all my friends were people I worked with informally, because I mean, I don't have a 9 to 5 or anything, but like the band guys were my guys.
Yeah.
They were the guys who came to my birthday party. So it was still, they were basically work friends, but obviously we slept in the same room sometimes because, we're on tour and there wasn't a big budget.
Yeah.
Or we slept in the same hotel and we showed up for breakfast. You don't really show up for breakfast 7 days in a row with your colleague, but that's my work environment. We were in the same tour bus. We've slept on the same bus with some people. After doing like a show for 22,000 people, we all sleep in a bus.
Yeah.
Because we had another show in Switzerland the next day. And you start to realize like, okay, it's all relationship, because how people then pick up on stuff way more than if you have your own cubicle and people come together. And so a lot of this happens informally. Like, you just see them sitting there and just like, hey, are you okay? Are you all right? And I'm tired. Or can I bring you something? Just like serving. I think acts of service is a love language that everyone responds to.
Good.
Obviously, words of affirmation also. Just being nice to people, I think it's a way of just showing them outside of the work context, showing them how, just send them a message every now and then. I'm thinking of you, how you good? Let's grab a beer or something like that. I think these relational skills help you when it's time to do business.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, it's just almost like you're just gaining favor, gaining influence with them, so that when it's time, like, hey, can you do this for me?
They just know instinctively.
Yeah, it's not my boss is asking me or this guy is asking me to do. It's like my friend needs a favor.
Yeah.
And obviously you can't be friends with everybody, but you can be friendlier
Yeah.
with everybody. I know I could get you fired because I'm the music director, and if I say I don't want you, no one's going to force you on me. But I don't have to act like that.
Yeah.
I could invite you to the house before the tour and just be like, hey, let's just chill.
Yeah.
And then you get to see my heart. And so the next time I criticize you, it's like, my friend is trying to help me be better.
So good.
Not like the music director doesn't like how I play.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing I've realized, like relationships are, there's no, like, it's not something you build in the HR way, maybe doesn't always work for companies.
Yeah.
But in my line of work, like just how you build these relationships, how you build these bridges to people, it's the most important thing. It would determine how. Sometimes I've had to ask people for favors where I know officially the rehearsal ends at 8.
Yeah.
But the music isn't ready. Can you stay for me until 9?
Yeah.
This is not. You might not even get paid extra. Can you do this for me? And they're like, yeah, cool, let's do it. And sometimes also working with volunteers at church has helped me communicate better, because I can't fire anybody.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me sometimes, because like in my other work, if I don't like how you play drums, I get a new drummer.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I just have to do it. It's just like, we're on a timeline. If you're sick, I'll find someone else. I don't have the patience. Not necessarily, even if you're my guy, I'm just like, hey, song needs to be ready by this time. So we're on the clock. I respect that you're on tour and you can't do it. I'm going to find someone else. Next time I'll think of you. All good. And they understand.
Yeah.
But it's different when you're working with volunteers. You need to be like, I couldn't find a babysitter for my kid, or my kid is sick and I can do it, or I had a stressful day at work. It's affected my ability to give. And that's when people really see how you feel about them. I've told people, don't show up. Don't show up. Take care of yourself. And can I help you? Or, going to help people move. or just like, hey, let's grab a coffee. And one time I invited someone for a coffee, and she was like, oh, what did you want to talk about? I'm like, nothing. Just wanted to have a coffee with you.
Yeah.
And then the fact she was like, oh, okay. Told me there was something about our relationship that was changing.
Yeah.
She always thought like our relationship was transactional. I was just like, I don't really have anything to talk about. We haven't had a coffee. And I was just like, why haven't we had a coffee?
Yeah.
I realized that. And she was starting to realize that, oh, this guy actually is interested in me. And we just talked about her life and work, started a new job and all of this. And, and I just write people randomly, like, how are you doing?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, did you want something? I'm like, no, I just want to see how you're doing.
Yeah.
That was it. And, they're expecting more. And it shows how our lives have become, where everything is very, oh, I need something for you. And how are you? It's the politeness before can you do this for me?
Yeah.
I'm like, no. How are you? It's the conversation. After you say you're good, are you sure? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Bye, have a nice day.
There's no ask.
That's all.
Yeah.
And I'm learning to just do that. I think of someone and I just write, how are you doing? I've done that to you like a couple of times, just out of the blue, like, hey, how are you doing? I haven't spoken to you in a while. I keep seeing your posts on Instagram. So I think we're talking. We're not really talking.
Yeah.
And obviously you keep doing that more. You're building influence so that the time when I'm like, hey, I need this thing from you, is that, this guy who's always been checking, where you stand with me. And that helps, that serves you. So you're not just always writing people when you need something, because then when you need something from them, you've got that influence. So we just got a new apartment in Berlin, which is like,
impossible.
People are already, I just told people, hey, we have a new apartment. It's like, when am I coming to help you move? That's how one guy texted me.
So good.
He's just like, when am I coming to help you move? I'm like, I haven't asked you to help me move.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm coming to help you move. Tell me when.
Yeah.
That's influence. So many things that we're striving or paying for, like, with blood and sweat and finances, if you would just take interest in people's lives, you get those things faster without even asking. Because he's just like, my friend is moving. And I remember they just moved recently and I kept bugging him. I know you have movers, but tell me if I can help you. I wrote him once. I'm serious about this. If you need help with me, you don't tell me, I'll be cross with you.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, we have it all covered. I'm like, are you sure? Okay. And I checked on him after and I did that. So when it wasn't because I wanted to move.
Yeah.
Now it's my turn. He's like, if you did that for me, I'm going to. And relationships become stronger like that.
Yeah, which is crazy because the trap there is it can become, and like you're a person of faith, right? You believe that God creates and Satan counterfeits.
Yes.
And so the created order is you love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah.
End of story.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever happens according to the way creation is.
Yes.
And usually a consequence of this, whether you plan for it or not, is that people want to pay that back.
Yeah.
You don't love your neighbor as yourself so that it's not transactional.
Exactly.
But then the counterfeit of this is like, hey, you know what?
I'm just nice to people so they're nice to you.
Right. I'm gonna go curry favor. I just need to talk to this producer so then maybe he'll produce for free.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's just something to protect, right? Because what it sounds like with your moving story, it's not like you helped him anticipate.
Yeah, we didn't have an apartment when I offered to help him,
Yeah, and I think that's so important to get right because unfortunately, I've worked with some leaders, if you can call them that. I've worked with some managers who have been like, hey, I need you to go to this event because this person is going to be there and I need you to sweet talk them. Here's a credit card, buy them whatever they want so that then they use our thing and tell everyone. And that's not it, right?
It works, to be fair. It works, but it's a perversion of it. It's not how it should be. And sometimes I have been nice to people. Also because I'm on a timeline, I don't have 3 months to just show you how nice I am. So I just go above and beyond and do something nice for you. But I'm also learning to just love people, period. Yeah. I'm learning to be good to people, not so they're good to me in return, but because that's my nature. Also to bring it back to God, I hope people are not turned off. But, it just says, so God gave his son. Yeah. Not because we would give our son back. It's just God loved the world, so he gave. Yeah. End of story. Yeah. It's not so that we can give him anything. It just stops there. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. And whosoever believes in him would have eternal life. Another thing he's giving. And that's it. And I'm learning that, love is not an exchange per se. It's just giving. It's just you give and it may never come back. And you need to be ready to be like, I might be nice to you. and you might not be nice to me. I'm
Yeah.
still going to be nice to you because that's who I am.
Yeah.
And so I often think about controllables,
Yeah.
and I want to control the things that I can control. And it's always in my power to love. It's not always in my power how you receive that love or how you reciprocate the love, but it's always in my power to love
Yeah.
and to be kind. And very often, not very often, I'm trying to do it less often. Sometimes I fail because I've just had a stressful day and I'm cross, or I'm like, I have a short fuse, and I usually go back. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. And I try and be better. But I think the ultimate goal is to grow in love, where I'm not, I think also it's also this world, like we're trying to get into a place where we never offend people. But even if I offend you,
Fingers crossed.
yeah, it's not really because I don't want something. Sometimes, you have to like lay down the law and just like, this is not acceptable or this is not good.
Like showing up late to rehearsal with Diazno.
Yeah, sometimes you have to just be like, hey, this is not acceptable, and just not necessarily have a friendly moment. But people know that doesn't change how I feel about them. I've also been late and people have told me not acceptable.
Yeah.
I didn't think, this guy hates me and he's never want to. It shouldn't change. You should get to a point where you can tell people like, hey, not cool. And also like being married and having a spouse, we have to have these honest conversations about expectations and boundaries. And it shouldn't make me second guess if she's still in love with me. And if that makes you, then something is wrong in your relationship. And so I think like living in love helps you even have clearer communication. So I can just address the thing that happened, and you're not thinking, oh, he doesn't love me anymore.
Yeah.
This marriage is over, or this friendship is over. And I think I can have the most direct conversations with my really good friends.
Yeah.
Because they know how I feel. It's like we've laid the foundation. So anything I put on this would hold.
Yeah.
And so I think it's very, very important that foundation is laid. And sometimes with people who I haven't made clear where they stand with me, I sometimes hold back criticism because I don't, but with my best friends, they're the guys who I actually tell like the most direct stuff, like, this made me feel like this when you said this, and very often if I can tell you this, it makes how you should receive it is I feel comfortable enough with you to share this with you. And it wasn't always so, like with my wife, and I'm just like, I want you to tell me how you really feel about this without means, like, don't hold back. Obviously, don't be like throwing punches just for the sake of throwing punches. But if you need to throw one punch, I can take it.
Yeah.
Because I know where your heart is. I know where we are in this relationship. So I'm not like, because you said this, I'm going to start second guessing. And I think on a less deep level, you can take that into work and you can take that into relationship with your neighbor and everything. So I think that makes the world just better.
So good. And there's a takeaway there as well, which is it's important that they know the foundation, they know where you are. And so if you're hesitating, I love you said you hold back. I wonder if it's also of merit to not just hold back, but to recognize, this is an opportunity for me to tell them, to establish this foundation. Like, hey, look, I want to maybe lay down the law a little bit, but
it doesn't change anything.
Yeah, and let me set the precedent that I care about you and I have your best and you mean so much to me.
Yeah.
And it's on this foundation I want to tell you, as opposed to poor leaders who just tell you, right, without knowing. And not only without knowing, without setting that precedent.
I think it's very, very, very important. And I think it just helps people receive criticism. Like I say, in my line of work, like producing, I get a lot of no's.
Yeah.
You send a mix, no. You send another mix, no. You send another mix, no. I just feel like I've grown tough skin because I see you're not trying to put down my work. You're saying I'm not communicating as clearly what I thought. Like, so what I thought I heard is not what you've heard.
Yeah.
It might be because we're hearing on two different systems. So I'm hearing on my studio's monitors. You're hearing on an iPhone. Sometimes I ask, where did you listen to this mix? Because I think it's dope.
Yeah.
And then they're like, I just listened on this. I'm like, listen on something else. And like, it sounds way better now. Because communication is what they hear. And I think being like in music and just sometimes you're in front of a crowd and you do this song like this is the best song. It's happened to me. I don't release a lot of music, but I'm starting to release music. And there was this one song that I just thought was an average song. And it did better than the song I thought was my best song.
Oh, wow.
I was like, the market is speaking.
Yeah.
The market is speaking. So what I thought I said wasn't what they got, and you get this feedback a lot. And I think it's very, very important that you're receptive to it, obviously, but that it's also just very, very clear, like that there's a foundation laid with people you're communicating with. And it's not just he just said this because he can.
Yeah.
It's always an opportunity, like you said, to just show people where you stand or where they stand with you, how you feel about them, how you think about them, not obviously in a too flattering way, because I also hate that where every conversation starts with like, that I love you, that. I just like, bro, just give me. I just know an axe is coming after. Yeah. But obviously it's I think it always serves you way better to just show yourself or show people, just like give of yourself first before you start to do anything too deep, and it just would be received way better.
Yeah. You talked about days where you're maybe having a tough day, you're having a hard time, you can't be bothered, you're in a bad mood. The reality of your career, even my career, like everyone's career, everyone who does creative work, is sometimes you feel empty, but you have to produce. You have a deadline, you have a show, you have the Deutsche Oper show.
Yeah.
What do you do? Does it affect the quality of your work? Do you produce garbage on those days because you're forced to, or like what's the process to? I'm in a hole, but hey, I need, the show must go on.
That's where you go back to reps. That's where you go back to programming, and that's where the art becomes science. Can you reproduce it on your bad days? If you can't reproduce it, we can't count on you. That's kind of what I was saying. I don't want to. I read this quote. It's like, don't practice until you get it right. Practice till you can't get it wrong.
Oof. This guy is dropping all kinds of wisdom.
These one-liners have changed my life. And so the reason I show up, people sometimes call me and I'm like, I'm practicing. Oh, you have a gig? I'm like, no, I'm practicing because I'm a musician. And sometimes people can't understand why I'm just sitting there practicing. I was like, this thing you just did, are you ever going to play in a show? I'm like, probably not. Then why are you doing it? Because it's a lifestyle.
So good.
And that's why I go back to reps. One day, if I can keep myself at 80% every day, doing 60% on a bad day, people will take it. But it becomes easy for me. It's like, let's say like my best day is 100%.
Yeah.
If I can keep practicing and keep there, it just becomes muscle memory. Like I can't get it wrong, even if I'm trying. I saw this video of this voice coach trying to demonstrate bad singing, and he had to work.
Yeah.
To sound bad.
Yeah, I have to. Sometimes I have to work to sing off key.
Yeah,
it's like effort, and I try sometimes. I listen to a song and I'm like, oh, I wonder if I can sing this really badly.
Yeah, because you've done so many reps, and he's trying to demonstrate how people are doing it wrong, and he's like, sorry, I need to do it again. And it was just, there's this video of Steph Curry. He's bouncing the ball on the court, and he bounces it, and the ball doesn't come back how he thought it would. It doesn't bounce, and then he says, check the floor.
Yeah.
Not check me. He's repeated that action so much that he's like, it can't be me. Whoa. There's something wrong with the floor. And I saw another video where, I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Kobe, where he's doing shots and he misses a shot, and it's like, check the rim. And they checked the rim and it was off by a few inches.
No way.
I'm not kidding. And these videos, like I see it and I'm just like, wow, this is where art has become science. Yeah. It's like, if something is wrong, I've done this so much that on my bad day, I can reproduce.
Yeah.
And so my good days can only be better. And so that's kind of where I go back to reps. And if you take it back to like your interpersonal relationship, you also practice kindness and you practice love. So even on my bad days, there are things I don't say. There's words I can't say. So if someone tells you that Diazno called this person like this, you could say, no, he will never say these. And I'm just like,
that's awesome.
Do I have things I just don't do?
Yeah.
Good day, bad day, because it's not a switch you can turn on and off.
Yeah.
You have to practice kindness. You have to practice it just like any other thing. And so that's like the answer I would give. It's just reps. Anything you want to grow in, make it a routine. Everything you want to grow in, make it a routine. If you want to be kind to people, just be kind to people every day of your life.
Take every opportunity. Don't waste
kind,
any.
Because one day you're going to be feeling less kind, but you've just trained it out of you, where even on a bad day, people can tell you're not having a good day, but they don't feel like overly disrespected by that. And that was something I've had to learn, because sometimes I've said things in rehearsals or said things in at home where I'm just like, I wish I didn't say it. On a normal day, I wouldn't say it, but it just tells me like whatever is not in you can come out. If it came out, it's because it's in you.
Wow.
And so you need to replace it with something else. And so it's just every day, keep practicing at whatever you want to get better at. And I think that helps you on your bad days.
Yeah.
To reproduce, you could take it to work. I just show up and try and mix something every day to keep my ears sharp and everything. Obviously, it's good to take a break, and rest is important.
Yeah.
But rest is part of the process. Just rest doesn't mean, it's not like a retirement, a short retirement and anything. But it's planned into that, where you're just repeating actions so that once they say, hey, I need it on demand, maybe my level drops a little bit, but it only drops to a point where I notice it. You can't notice it because it's way higher than what the market needs. And that's what I've realized about these guys. They can just do these things on demand.
Yeah.
You wake Steph Curry, give him a ball, he just shoots.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, this is not his best day, because he has these games where he just blows everyone out of the water. But his baseline is so much higher.
Yeah.
And that's why he's Steph Curry, the best shooter of all time. And I try and take that into my work. Like, what's my baseline? What's my off day look like? And if it's too bad, then I need to raise that.
So good. This is super relatable. Last year I think it was October, I was in Malaysia for a conference, and I was the opening keynote, massive conference. And I was also very sick. I was coughing out blood for like a week. And there was just, nobody knew why. It was a big medical mystery. I told the organizers, and they were like, hey, there's a doctor in the hotel. Do you need them? I was like, no, I'll figure it out. But I was the opening keynote, and this had to happen. And I was definitely not on the top of my game.
Yeah.
That video is on YouTube. We'll put a link in the show notes. Nobody can tell.
Yeah.
Because on my on day, as you said, like, things have happened. You know what I'm saying? And so I love this. Your takeaway is, we don't prepare for the best day, we prepare for the worst day.
Exactly.
And on our worst day, how much above average are we? That's the main metric. I love it. I love it so much. Let's start wrapping up. But I would be super remiss if I didn't ask you, a creative professional, about AI. This is a lot of listeners are interested.
Coming for our jobs.
Yeah. A lot of listeners are interested in AI. There's I don't know if you've even heard of this. There's a company called Suno, Suno.ai.
Yes.
I have generated songs with Suno, and you know what, man?
It's crazy.
They sound really good. And so, do you feel? Let's start maybe super at the top. Do you feel threatened, or do you feel this is actually a boost? It can give me inspiration. Even better, if I'm missing an instrumentalist, I could just have AI play for me.
That's actually where I think the danger, because I had this conversation with friends, and the first thing I think that can be problematic is, for instance, if I needed a bass part, I could just ask a friend, hey, can you just do it for like $100 or $50? It's not a lot of money, but it's just something. Like, you could take your wife out for dinner, take your girlfriend out for, it's just, I think those jobs are going to disappear. Which then raises the baseline for who can survive again. So just like they're saying, the cashier, like the lower level jobs, which kind of are important for helping you get by. There was a time when these jobs was what kept me in music, because I wasn't making enough money, but I wasn't making a lot, but I was making enough to just
get by.
And so that's the first danger. It's like, I think the high level guys will always have work. Like, a Phineas is not going to run out of work because there's AI. He's Phineas.
Yeah.
But maybe the guy who's just not quite there might run out of jobs, because there's this guy who reached out to me to do his album, and he's like, I tried everything with Suno, and he's just sending me. That's the first time I'd heard about Suno, never really used it. Out of principle, I just don't use AI to create. I've used ChatGPT for lyrics just to see what it gives me, but I had never really created music. But he just said, I just put in my guitar and my voice into Suno, and wow, it created a whole thing.
Yeah.
And so I see, like, what we call elevator music, there's not going to be a market for it as a composer, because these are they're so basic. Like, the music you hear at your dentist's office, I think is going to go, like music you might hear at Christmas markets.
Jingles for ads.
Jingles, a lot of these things might disappear, and I think that might be dangerous, because it takes us a bit backwards, where like the college student who might have just needed money for like groceries in the month would have just been invited, hey, can you just come play violin for $200?
Yeah.
It's not a lot of money, but it buys you groceries for a week or two, maybe helps you buy new strings for your guitar, because there was a time these little jobs just bought me strings, and I was just like, okay, it's enough for that. And that's where my fear is, that where if you're not able to like make a lot of money from it, you're going to make no money. And that's where I'm a bit scared. We'll see how it goes. Obviously, it could be a good tool. It's lowered the barrier of entry into music, but it's also raised the level that you need to be at to just be a professional or to make money from it. I don't know if I can say it's good. I think it's good and bad. Some people will profit from it. Some people would need to find a new career. But definitely, I'm a pragmatist.
Yeah.
So I just like to, instead of what should be, I just look at what is and start from there. Maybe we try and take you back to what should be, but I just start from what is, because what's the point of talking about utopia when we're here in Berlin, Germany in 2026? And so I think it's here, and it's being integrated into different things. I don't think it can replace every job, because they're just, maybe it could. I don't know, maybe in 50, 60 years it does better, but I don't think it can replace every creative job because of that spark, that intuition. I think someone's just going to hear something different. It's just also because I think a lot of these things come from interactions. I can hear a song and I'm just like, this song came from a very deep place. And I don't know.
From a deeply human place.
Yeah, human place where someone just died. And you write this song that just explains everything. How do you teach a computer that?
Yeah.
Or you just witness the birth of your child and you compose something that's so deep where I can just feel like, wow, where did that come from? I don't know that machines can always replicate that. Yeah, but that's not to say they're not able to replicate some stuff. I think the superficial stuff,
elevator music,
and all of that, all this like entry level stuff, they might. But I've just heard some really like beautiful pieces of music where I'm just like, I don't know that AI understands human emotion enough, because music is also speaking to the soul. It's also emotions. Like we're manipulating sound and frequencies and colors and timbres to awaken emotions in us. And I don't know that if you've not felt that emotion, you can replicate it.
Yeah, the other argument is it's hardwired in us to hear certain pitches and timbres and alert our like threat detection.
Yeah.
For example, I'm speaking to you in a calm way, but oh my God, I could be speaking to you like this. And you're like, well, something's happening here, And I'm a speaker, so I know how to like manipulate people this way. AI can also do that. It can produce the right timbres and frequencies. So I feel like it could still like have the same emotional effect on people.
I'm not saying it can't.
Right.
I don't see it, because I think someone else has to still say, do this.
Yeah.
Whereas it just comes intuitively, where the times I pick up the guitar and because of how I'm feeling, I play something, not really because I want you to feel something, but because I already feel it. So there's one thing, I think AI would always come from the point of, I want you to feel something rather than I'm feeling this right now.
And then you share this with me.
Exactly.
Whoa.
So I think it was credited to Beethoven. I read it once. It said music must first be enjoyed by the performer. And that's where I feel like AI might struggle.
Yeah.
It's not feeling the music. It's creating the music so you feel something. But sometimes, some of the best music I've heard wasn't because they wanted someone to feel something. It's because they felt some way.
Yeah.
So I feel like this, and I'm going to write what I feel.
Yeah.
And then someone else hears it and it's like, wow, you've spoken to me.
Yeah.
That's where I think AI will struggle.
So good.
But if we need music where I just want you to feel something, AI could definitely do it. And we'll see what the new order of the day is.
Yeah.
But I'm cautiously following developments. I don't use it much.
Good.
But I know it's there, and I have tried it out in the past. It's definitely getting better,
Yeah.
but yeah, we'll see.
I think you draw such an amazing line between the artist or the creative and the audience, where
Yeah.
it's true art is I feel something, I'm going to produce something, and it's going to make you feel. It's going to
Yeah.
like C.S. Lewis has this beautiful imagery he uses where he talks about the dragons that sit in front of our soul. You know this? Um, he says there's these like dragons that sit in front of our heart that guard us against things that are counter to our beliefs.
Yeah.
And they breathe fire on like foreign
Yeah.
ideas. And you've talked about God a lot.
Yeah.
There's people listening to this who are like, God, oh, I don't want, and their dragon
Yeah.
is going to start blowing fire. And he says art is this beautiful Trojan horse
Yes.
that can come through the dragon gate.
Exactly.
And meet you at the soul level. And a great artist, like you said, like feels something, they transmute that into some medium,
Yeah.
and then something deep inside you feels
Yeah.
that. I think there's many songs that based on the first chord you just know, oh, this is where we're
Yes.
going. For me, that one of them is Drops of Jupiter by Train.
Yeah.
That chord hits and you go like, oh, okay, we're
Yeah,
going
it
here.
speaks to your soul because it's come from also something in the Bible. Deep calls out to deep in the sense where it's like I've just heard some pieces where I was just like I cried.
Yeah.
I'm like even with classical music, like people say classical music is so like I've heard some classical pieces that just made me weep.
Yeah.
Like it just made me like some of times these songs have put me to sleep after
Yeah.
like I'm like I can't sleep and I just put on like Debussy.
Yeah.
Just like what is this beauty? Like what were you thinking when you wrote this?
Yeah.
It's not really because he was, and many of these guys died poor without audiences.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really like they were creating music for,
Yeah.
and that's why sometimes I can hear music and it's like, it's so generic.
Yeah.
I know you're trying to get me to
me.
feel something, and I don't want that. I want to know, what do you feel?
So good.
What do you feel in
Yeah.
that moment? Because then I hear you talk.
Yeah.
It feels sometimes like you're just reading words back to me so that I could feel some way. But I want to hear, what do you think?
Yeah.
You know, when someone can tell you, when someone's talking to you, it's like, and you're like, you're telling me what I want to hear.
Yeah.
But I want to
that.
hear what you're thinking in that moment. And sometimes I listen to music and I'm just like, you're telling me what I want to hear, but I still don't know what.
I don't know you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with other music, I'm just like, wow,
That's so
I think I get you. It's like so deep. And there are artists where I listen to them and it just makes me feel like, I think I know you, even though we've never met.
Yeah.
And I think that's where true art lies.
Yes.
It's in just like, and maybe some resonates better, some's more commercial than others.
Yeah.
But true art lies, I think, in just like, this is what I want to say.
Yeah.
And some speakers have larger audiences than others,
Yeah.
and that's also fine.
Yeah. Yeah. This is, the Drops of Jupiter. It always got to me at the heart, and I always wondered why. And then I went and researched the song. It's because it's a song that the lead singer of Train wrote in response to his mother dying of cancer. And the lyrics tell me, did the wind sweep you off your feet? Did you dance across the universe? Like it's about his mother's soul traveling through space. And I was like, whoa. And there was something there that I only found out after I researched. And I was like, that's the purpose of art. Ben Affleck said famously, he was actor talking about AI. He said, it sucks because it gives you more of the same, more of the average, more of what you want to hear.
Yeah.
I think also if you look at Hollywood, like all these new Marvel movies, they're just like fan service, right? They're sycophantic and they're not give me wonder, give me empathy, give me humanity.
Yes.
And so in this way, AI and AI generated art
Can only reproduce something that's already there.
right, and it serves capitalism as opposed to humanity.
Yes.
Interesting.
And that's where I still feel like Hans Zimmer would always have a job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he there's these people who just write from a deep place of emotion.
Yeah.
Where we those are like the pieces of art we train AI on.
Yeah.
Try and reproduce, but in the end, there's still gonna be some geniuses who feel from such a deep place that they would always be the benchmark for which AI we try and train AI to.
Yeah.
But it's like I said, it's like are you saying something? Or are you saying what you want to say?
Yeah.
Or are you composing from emotion?
Yeah.
Or composing because out of what you want? It's like, is it external or is it internal?
So good.
And I think that's where we would draw the line. And I think AI would obviously it's very good at reproducing, and so everything that's generic, just it's a lot easier, it's a lot faster to do that. But there's just gonna be the rebels who just think in a way that it's just so disruptive. They will always have a place in society.
Yeah, and that's maybe the last thing I'd like to ask you about this is I think, and I'd love to hear what you think as a creative. I think AI is, sure, it's going to disenfranchise a lot of people, especially like the entry level. But the more optimistic side of this is it's going to force them and motivate them to rise above and get to maybe your level.
Yeah.
And for people who are already at this level where they can't be replaced by AI like you, it's going to even raise the standard even more, where you have to create more novelty that can't be produced by some average reproducing machine. Right? So it may not seem on the surface like a net positive, but here it is a positive because it makes everyone better.
I think that's literally what's gonna happen. Like for me, I keep asking myself after I do something, is like, could AI do this?
Yeah.
And that forces me to just be better.
Beautiful.
Every day. And it creates pressure to be more in tune with the world, to use silence, to just, where are you feeling? Are you just creating something generic because you're basically a machine that's been turned on and prompted? Or does this come from someplace special? Because I think deep will always call out to deep.
Yeah.
But that also means shallow will call out to shallow.
Beautiful.
And so not a reference to the song Shallow, because I think that's it's called Shallow, it's a deep song, you know? I remember the first time even hearing that song, and that's the song that I heard the song and I wanted to watch the movie. Because I'm like, I hear something in your voice, in the music. I just want to know what the story is about. And then when I watched it, I was like, wow, it's beautiful. And I think it's also like a movie script. You could also tell AI to just generate a movie script. But have you watched Gladiator? The original.
You know, you mentioned Hans Zimmer and Now We Are Free, that soundtrack.
You know, and so you just see like it forces us to be better.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a net positive, obviously, because you have to see how much damage it does and weigh it against how much good it does. But I just think it just every day, which is kind of where I'm trying to live. I try to learn a bit more about the world, figure out what's happening, be in tune, have times when I just sit and think and process and feel. I think we're so inundated with stimulus in the world. Just every day, there's just always like we're just, you know. And I don't know if it's made us less feeling, even though we feel more.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So we feel more that we've lost sensitivity in a sense where it's hard to wonder, you know, where you just hear something for the sake of just like, wow. I remember when I was younger, I heard some songs and it's just like, wow.
Yeah.
And now it's just like,
it's another song.
Next one.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's maybe going to be like, it's going to take us back to that place because we'll just get so tired of the generic that we just want to hear something special. We just want to hear something beautiful. And it's like, I know I can use it, but I'm not going to use it. And maybe it teaches us a bit of more self-control. Yeah. We'll see where we land, but obviously here for the ride because it's here to stay. And we'll see.
Fantastic. Well, listen, Diazno, it's not lost on me that you're truly a master. I think you're recognized by me, by others, and it's definitely such a privilege and honor to have had you on this show.
Thanks for
to share not just creativity but like leadership. I think there's so much about leadership and how to get buy-in and how to not just be in charge, but to lead by serving, by laying down your life, by communicating not what you say, but what they hear. And it's just so valuable. And I'd be remiss if I didn't just give you the biggest thanks. So on behalf of myself, all the listeners, man, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure. It's really, really been a pleasure. Thanks. And you're a really good interviewer.
Thanks.
Lovely conversation. Time just flew by. I don't know how long we've been at this. I haven't.
Quite long. But
you know, but it's been like an interesting conversation.
Fantastic. Thanks again.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining my discussion with Diazno. I hope you got from it as much as I did. There's so many quotes he keeps dropping. For example, communication is not what you say, but what they hear, right? Or what they understand. Incredible. Diazno is available on Instagram if you want to reach out to him. He's an artist, he's a producer, but he's also a creative and a leader. I'd invite you to go find him on Instagram. It's actually pretty easy to do so. You just type Diaz, like Cameron Diaz, Diaz, and then Diazno, that's his name. He's available on all kinds of social media and is definitely someone interesting to reach out to. If you're learning from and or enjoying this content, then a great way to support it is to leave a review. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, anything up to 5 stars helps make the podcast more discoverable. If you're watching on YouTube, then if you like the video and maybe subscribe to the channel for future ones, that also is a positive signal. If there's any feedback you have at all about this episode, about guests you'd like to see on the podcast in the future, drop a comment and I'd love to do that for you. All of this is indeed for you. It's all just to make it more discoverable. Also, if there was anything of merit here that touched you, I'd invite you to share that on social media, however you want, with just text, with a link. It's up to you. The goal is to share knowledge and wisdom and information so that all of us can collectively improve. Ideally, a rising tide raises all the boats. With that, I want to thank you so much for being a part of the episode. Thank you for joining the podcast. And most importantly, thank you for your interest in engineering.